Today we are driving the 2022 Lincoln Navigator Black Label L, but as always, let me give you a brief tour of the car before we get it out on the road. This isn't the newest Navigator, which is very controversial, so this is for the people that want to have a normal luxury full-size SUV. As far as the key fob goes, it is very traditional Ford/Lincoln and it feels relatively high quality. The headlights are going to be fully LED with a projector and adaptive style LED headlamp, daytime running lights, and fog lights at the bottom. They also do animations when you lock and unlock the car. The grille is completely made of chrome and there is an illuminating Lincoln logo. It looks quite nice and is very prominent on the road. At the side, you will find 22-inch wheels with a turbine style. These are exclusive to the Black Label and they look properly fancy and expensive. There is Navigator branding on the fender and the mirrors are going to be finished in chrome. They include heating, blind spot monitoring, auto dimming, and power folding. At the bottom, you will find some chrome trim as well as power running boards. Those are standard on the Black Label model. Taking a step back to look at the side profile, you can see just how large the Navigator L is. It is a full foot longer than the standard wheelbase Navigator at 222 inches long. The wheel and tire setup in the back is the exact same as the front, measuring in at 22 inches. There is some chrome trim underneath the windows, and you can see just how long the third row window is on this Navigator L. Taking a look at the back, the Navigator has a very clean design. At the bottom area, there is no exposed exhaust, but the bumper is going to be finished in gloss black. There's also a very large reflector for the extra safety. Moving up, you will find a light bar that goes all the way across, and the taillights are going to be fully LED. There is also Lincoln branding, and on the new Navigator, it is going to light up at night. The animations for these taillights are very nice, but let's go ahead and take a look at the trunk space. The Navigator L has significantly more space than the standard wheelbase Navigator, but it still trails the competitors by a lot. There is some storage space for some extra organization, and you can power fold down the third row and second row. As far as dimensions go, you will find 34.3 cubic feet of space beyond the third row, 79.6 beyond the second row, and 120.2 as the maximum. These are some very good figures, but keep in mind that if you want more space, go ahead and get the Cadillac Escalade ESV or the Jeep Grand Wagoneer L. Ford and Lincoln, when they extend their full-sized SUVs, put more focus on expanding the legroom in the second and third rows over the cargo room. That being said, this space should be more than enough for most families. To close the trunk, just push the button or use the hands-free access. Now let's take a look at the rear seats. On the door panel, you will find plenty of storage space and very high-quality materials. There are two metal speaker grills, a ton of storage space at the bottom, leather and wood trim covering the top. Accessing the third row is very simple. You can pull the lever or you can just push this button. You can also go right through the middle if you don't have the console optioned on. In the back of the Navigator L, even with the seats slid all the way back, there's an insane amount of legroom and headroom. You also get these large cubbies, cup holders, and these buttons to recline the seats. That is something you cannot do in the Cadillac Escalade ESV. You can also see just how large this window is to let in plenty of light. With this captain's chair setup, I can extend my leg through the middle, which is very nice. Overall, the third row experience is amazing. There are plenty of amenities and the space is insane, offering basically the same amount of legroom as most vehicles' second rows. Speaking of the second row, let's go ahead and check that out next. The seats are made of a very high quality leather and they have piping, stitching, and little patterns in the perforations. They are also heated and ventilated. Sitting in the second row, I have even more space than the third row. You can also slide the seat all the way back for maximum comfort. There's a seat back pocket and the back of the seat is going to be finished in leather for easy cleaning. In the middle, you will find a little control screen that controls everything from your climate controls to the audio. You can also go into a calm screen that just shows the time. Below that, you will find two USB ports, a 12-volt outlet, and a household-style outlets. Beneath that, you will find two cup holders that pop out. I also want to mention that you can get a console in the middle that has a lot of storage space and an entertainment system that has Amazon Fire TV built in. Let's go ahead and check out the beautiful front area next. Getting in and out of the Navigator should be a piece of cake even for smaller kids because of the grab handle and the power running boards. Unfortunately though, there are no soft closed doors. As far as the front door panel is concerned, it has a very beautiful design. There's plastic at the bottom with an insane amount of storage space, two metal speaker grills, plenty of wood trim, and lots of leather. The seats are also crazy. They have some fine details like piping and stitching, and they also have heating, ventilation, massaging, and 30 ways of power adjustment, a record for the industry. That and the Aviator have some of the most comfortable seats in any vehicle. Let's go ahead and start it up. As far as the steering wheel goes, it is going to be very nicely leather wrapped and heated. There are plastic pedal shifters on the back, real aluminum on your toggles, and you will also find some wood trim at the bottom. The airbag cover is also finished in leather. These turn signal socks feel very expensive and high quality, and taking a look at the gauge cluster, there is a good amount of customization. You can scroll through all sorts of information, but unfortunately there is no full screen map. I like to keep it at the calm screen because it is very minimalist. As far as the main infotainment system goes, this Navigator has the Sync 4 system. It isn't the latest system with Google built in, but it still has built-in navigation as well as wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This is really all you need because the latest Navigator with a 48-inch display does nothing more than just display a few widgets and serve as your gauge cluster. This system works great, but I think the Google built-in would be nice. You will also find a bunch of seat controls on the door panel, and that can be controlled with this main screen. You can do things like adjust different parts of the seat that I didn't even know could be adjusted, so that is how they got 30 ways of adjustment into these seats, and you can also turn on the massage. There are 5 different modes, and the massage system is pretty good, definitely better than the Cadillac system. I don't know if you really need it to be more comfortable because these seats are insanely comfortable, but I think it would be nice if you want to relax. The cameras are relatively high resolution and you get multiple different angles like a 360 view, but there is no 3D view. This is basically pulled right out of the Ford Expedition. There is a piano key style shifter and they feel relatively high quality with the aluminum and the glass black. The climate controls are physical buttons and toggles and they feel very high quality as well. If you are getting the impression that this is a very expensive and high-end cabin, you are getting the right one. These toggles are made of real aluminum and they feel very satisfying to click. You can also bring up the whole menu just by clicking that button. As far as storage goes, you will find plenty of it in this Navigator. There's a little cubby as well as 2 USB ports and a wireless phone charging pad, 2 cup holders, and a massive center console. Unfortunately, no cool box like in the Escalade and Grand Wagoneer. This whole console is floating so that you have a large center pass-through, basically a big open area to store something like a purse or a grocery bag. Up top, you will find a suede headliner and a leather-wrapped grab handle. I haven't talked much about materials, but this is a very high-end cabin. There's lots of wood trim with geometric patterns, a lot of leather, and aluminum. There is very little plastic in this cabin besides, of course, the bottoms of the door panel. But now let's go ahead and take the Navigator L out on the drive. Alright, we are driving the 2022 Lincoln Navigator Black Label L. This is a very beautiful car and I'm super excited to have this out on the road. As always, let's start off by talking about the powertrain. The Navigator L is powered by a 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 making 440 horsepower and 510 pound-feet of torque. That is mated to a 10-speed automatic transmission and gets about 16 mpg in the city, 22 on the highway, and 18 combined. That is actually not bad for a large, full-sized SUV, especially compared to the Grand Wagoneer and Escalade. By the way, I want to mention that this is the only powertrain option available on the Navigator. Unlike the Expedition, there is no lower output version that you can get on lower trims. However, that is not a bad thing because this engine is very smooth and offers plenty of power. We'll be doing an acceleration test a little bit later in the video. As for now, let's talk about what it's like to drive around town. This is a very nice vehicle to drive. Some things could be improved like the ride quality because this car does not have an air suspension, it is actually on a solid rear axle. That does make it a little bit rougher and bouncier than you would expect for a full-size luxury SUV costing over $100,000, but still it is quite nice. It is definitely better than your average SUV like a Toyota RAV4 or a Honda CR-V. Something else worth pointing out is how big this car is. It is 222 inches long and 80 inches wide, which is not small at all. It is, however, the smallest in the segment because the Escalade ESV and Grand Wagoneer L are both 227. Driving this large vehicle will definitely take some getting used to if you are used to something like a Honda Pilot, a mid-sized SUV, but if you are going from something like a Chevrolet Tahoe, it should not be that bad. That being said, it can be a little bit cumbersome and stressful to drive in tight situations. Like if you are in a tight parking lot or driving down a narrow road, it can be a little bit stressful because you might feel like you're going to scrape something. But once you figure out the dimensions of the vehicle and you get used to the way it drives, I feel like you will get the hang of it right away. Finding parallel parking spaces can also be slightly more difficult because of this car's dimensions. It's not parking that is hard because this car can basically park itself and you have multiple camera angles, but you might not be able to fit between two cars because this car is so long. Let's go ahead and see an acceleration test. Wow, the Navigator definitely has plenty of power and that V6 sounds good. Now that we're on the highway, let's talk about the highway driving dynamics. So wind noise is pretty noticeable. After all, this is kind of a big brick hurtling through the air, so there isn't much Lincoln can do about it. But I will say, compared to the Expedition I was in a few months ago, this is an improvement. The ride quality is the same situation, not amazing and definitely not something I would expect out of a luxury full-sized SUV. This car also has a suite of driver assistance tech. Obviously, you get the basics as standard equipment because this car is very expensive and it is a family vehicle after all, so you get blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise control, auto high beams, and collision mitigation. But you also get Blue Cruise, which is an extra option. It is also known as Active Glide on Lincolns, but they have the same functionality. So basically, you can take your hands off the wheel, and as long as you are looking forward, you can basically drive hands-free. So this is an addition to adaptive cruise control, and it will also work in stop-and-go traffic. One thing it cannot do is automatically change lanes and go around slower traffic. That is something Super Cruise and GM vehicles can do, and overall I think Super Cruise is slightly better than Blue Cruise because it just works a little bit smoother and better, and it just gives you a more sure feeling when you are on the highway. That being said, this is still an amazing system, and I don't think you'll be wanting for any more. It definitely takes away a lot of the fatigue of driving on the highway or just on a long commute. Now that we are off the highway, let's talk about some other driving dynamics. As far as the brakes go, they are quite grabby, but they are strong. I know in some recent GM vehicles, it's been hard to feel confident with the brakes and the stopping distance, and also the responsiveness of the pedal. This is almost too good. It's good that you can stop in a good distance, but the grabbiness and the lurching that comes along with it kind of takes away from the driving experience. But that's just one of the things that you have to get used to when owning this vehicle. Over time, you will learn to find the sweet spot of the pedal, and you will learn to apply just the right amount of pressure so it doesn't lurch as much. Now let's go ahead and do an acceleration and handling test. I am not expecting much from the handling because of just how large and heavy this car is, and as I expected, there is a good amount of body roll. Now, this isn't really something I was expecting to be good. At least you don't feel like you're going to flip over like you do in some other vehicles like the Bronco, but you're definitely not going to feel secure going canyon carving in your Navigator L. After all, this car is 6,000 pounds and 222 inches long, so I don't think anybody is going to feel motivated to do that. Now, we are about to wrap up this video on the 2022 Lincoln Navigator Black Label L. Overall, this car is amazing. The new Navigator is pretty controversial with its lack of physical buttons, its lack of ease of use, and just the overall interior design, but this car is free from all of that. Also, it has a lot of space in all three rows and the trunk, and it has a beautiful cabin that is very luxurious and feature-rich. I really like the way this cabin is designed and just the overall high-end feel of it. If you are daily driving this car, there are some things that you will have to get used to, like maneuvering such a large vehicle and the touchy brakes, but when you are on the highway and you're just cruising, it is such a nice experience. Blue Cruise takes away so much of the fatigue of driving, and also just the overall comfort of this cabin is really going to give you a good experience. Also, the 30-way power adjustable seats that are made of a very high quality leather are insanely comfortable. I would go as far to say that this is one of the most comfortable seats I've ever sat in. Would you buy this over the Jeep Grand Wagoneer L or Cadillac Escalade ESV? Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.